everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Oh, I'm feeling good. A little nasally, I would say. I'm a little nasally.
Yeah, you've been sick this week.
Yeah, it's been a rough go. I'm not like one of those typical guys you hear about that like really, just kind of talks about how sick I am all the time. But
what do they say? A man cold?
Yeah. I'm usually pretty good, but like yesterday knocked me out a little bit.
You were off your feet for a bit. I made you several cups of tea.
You did. You were very nice. Thank you.
Every once in a while, I'll pull out that nice card.
Yeah, you're a heck of a caregiver. You're a heck of a caregiver.
Although I think you said before we started recording that you're afraid of me.
Well, yeah, because you run a tight ship. So I say it all the time, folks. If you really love this show, you've picked a good show because Allison's going to be, go hell or high water. This show's going to be done sometime every single week. So
Mike just takes forever to get his butt in this seat that you see him sitting in,
or hearing me sitting in. And it's we're definitely two different types of people, which I think is maybe why we've worked this far. So we'll see. But I was about like I forgot my drink and I was like, I gotta get a drink. And I looked at her.
I see him poke his head and I'm like, now what?
I was going to get it no matter what. It's not like she'd be like, don't get a drink. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, sweetheart. But I was kind of just prepared for what was going to happen.
My wrath.
Yeah. A lot of wrath.
So this episode will be coming out on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to everyone.
Yeah.
I know being a mom can be a bit of a thankless job.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether you have kids or not, maybe you have some fur babies or something you're taking care of, some kind of, motherly thing.
Any nurturing, caregiving position you might be in.
Teachers, all sorts of things.
Absolutely.
Nurses, all that kind of stuff. You're so let's just, I ask this every year, but let's put yourself in the situation of a gift giver for Mother's Day.
I already sent you what I wanted for Mother's Day, and I told you it was on sale at the time that I sent it, so you probably missed that.
What was it?
It was a ring.
A ring?
Yes, it was a ring. I sent it to you. I said, FYI, this is on sale right now, and I would love it in a size 5 for Mother's Day.
Was it 2 rings?
Yes.
Oh, it was more than a ring. Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 rings.
Okay, interesting. Well, okay. Well, what about other mothers out there? What would be some good options?
Anything a person likes.
You know what?
Go with a theme. Maybe pick a theme. If somebody likes coffee, get them a awesome bag of coffee with a mug, or if they like candles, or
would you say I'm a good gift giver?
I would say for sure yes.
Remember that time you told me that I'm a terrible gift giver?
I don't know why I said that. I didn't mean it. Now he uses it and throws it in my face all the time.
Okay, folks, I need to see in the comments if your person that you love the most in your life told you one day, you know what, you're not a very good gift giver.
I don't know even why. That was probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and we laugh about it now, obviously. But I thought it'd be nice to share with you guys because you listen to our show.
Oh, so that everyone thinks that Allison's a nasty, wicked bee.
Well, yeah, we got to get some more back. I mean,
absolutely, we want everyone to hate me.
No, everybody thinks you're perfect, so it's like,
right.
gotta show some some dents in the armor, as they say. But
some kinks in the chain.
Yeah. So it's Mother's Day. Yeah, happy Mother's Day to you all. We really appreciate all.
And I do know Mother's Day can also be a difficult day for a lot of people who have lost their parent or whatever it happens to be. So our hearts are with you if that's the case.
And something I always think of is something like, I'm not going to remember the quote by like Winnie the Pooh or whatever, but it's always that thing like I feel good when I feel so bad about like losing somebody because that means I love them so much. Like that's the only reason. Like I think about it all the time when I lose pets because I'm always the one to bring them to put them down, which is fantastic. But it's just like the reason I care so much and I'm so sad is because I loved him so much. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. So.
And meanwhile, our daughter is away this weekend. She's at a birthday party in Orlando and she was packing up yesterday to leave. And I was like, is it weird that I feel like busting out and crying? She's like, no, Mom, it's not.
Yeah, it's good. It's good you miss her. And these parents are kind of going all out. Like they're taking them to like Universal Studios and like staying like 2 nights at a house, like a VRBO or something.
Yeah, for a 13th birthday party. I'm like, shoot.
Yeah, it's not even a Sweet 16. I don't know what the deal is. And we're like, okay, yeah, you can take her. And I was just like, I don't know, are we supposed to offer to pay? Like it's like you wouldn't offer unless they ask you because it's their birthday party. Like, I don't know.
It's very generous, but I miss her and it gives me a glimpse of how I would ever feel if she goes away to college.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2 days. Imagine months and months.
Oh, I love our daughter. But she's so funny, though, because she wants to begrudge us. So she's away for the weekend. And I was telling her, I'm like, oh, yeah, we're going to go get noodles at that place. And she's like, what? She's like, I love that place. I want to go. I'm like, what do you want us to sit here and stare at the wall while you're gone?
Well, much like I'm afraid of you, you're afraid of her.
I am a little bit afraid of her.
So-
She's very strong-willed, well-spoken, concise.
She's with her. She's got it. She's got it.
She's wise well beyond her 13 years.
Yeah. And our son's pretty neat too. But, either way. But yeah, no. So you're like, if we go to a coffee date, we're always like, oh gosh, we can't say that we went to Starbucks.
I know. She's a tough critic.
She's going to want her like whatever drink.
Pink drink. Her huge thing is a pink drink with a strawberry cold foam or some.
Pink drink, 4 extra scoops of strawberries because it's free. So she's just like me. She's like, all right, it's free. I'll get it. And then a cold foam. And I think light ice is usually what it is.
Always light ice.
Yeah, she loves it.
Yeah. So on that note, are you ready to dive into this?
I am.
All right. So this is a case suggestion from Melinda, and this is the murder of Rachel Morin. So while men are not immune from the dangers of exercising outdoors, women especially are victims of assault and harassment when out running and exercising outdoors. And this might be perpetuated by the sexualization of women and the media's response to crimes against women that often involve a victim-blaming mentality. So women sadly cannot control what others do, while we know there is no such thing as asking for it. And you can take every precaution in the world and still end up a victim. So it is infuriating, and it angers me so much that a woman can't go out for fresh air and exercise without fearing for her life. So until something changes, women must be diligent about protecting themselves when out running or walking outdoors. So on Saturday, August 5th, 2023, 37-year-old Rachel Morin, who was a fitness enthusiast and mother of 5, she set out for her near daily walk at about 6 p.m. on the popular Ma and Pa Trail in Bel Air in Harford County, Maryland.
Hey, it's just like us, Ma
just
and
like
Pa.
us. I know. Every time I read it, I thought of us because we always say that we're the
Ma and Pa podcast. We're just an individual podcast, no network.
So this is Bel Air. It is in Maryland, northeast of Baltimore. So she sadly set out and she never returned. So her boyfriend, this is 27-year-old Richard Tobin, he reported her missing at 11:23 p.m. after Rachel still had not returned home, and she stopped responding to text messages and phone calls starting at around 7 p.m., 7:04, I believe, to be exact. So it was the next day when the Harford County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call that a woman's body had been found off the trail. So Rachel Morin was born on May 20th, 1986 in New Hampshire to Patty Morin and the late Ronald Morin, and she had 5 siblings. So according to her obituary, she was a devoted mother of 5. Like I said earlier, she loved fitness, fashion, and traveling. And she was always the life of the party. She was best described as faith-filled, loving, and adventurous. She owned a cleaning company, and she worked tirelessly to provide for her children. So when Rachel's boyfriend realized that she wasn't home and 2 of her children, one was a teenager, they were home alone, he immediately felt that something was not right, since she really only planned to be out on the trail for maybe 45 minutes. So Richard drove out to the Ma and Pa Trail. This is a place, like I said, that Rachel visited nearly every day during the warmer summer months whenever it allowed her to be out there. So he found her car in a nearby parking lot, but there was no sign of Rachel herself. So the last text Rachel's daughter received from her mom, like I said, was at 7:04 p.m. And then from that point on, further texts and phone calls went unanswered. So as the search for Rachel began, Richard told investigators that her car could be found at the trailhead on William Street in Bel Air, and she often utilized the trail, but she had never left her car there and stayed out. So the search continued until 1 p.m. This is the following day, when a volunteer who was out searching specifically for Rachel noticed a trail that had flattened leaves off the trail somebody would be walking or running on. They also noted large rocks with blood on them, and then they eventually came across her body right around 70 to 80 yards off the trail in a drain culvert. And it was immediately clear to investigators that this had been a homicide, that Rachel had been a victim of a violent attack. This was not an accidental injury. So according to her autopsy, Rachel endured 15 to 20 blows to the head, and she died as a combined result of strangulation and blunt force trauma. She had been sexually assaulted and bruises blanketed her body and her face to the point that she was unrecognizable. She was found partially nude with her sports bra pulled up over her breasts and her shorts pulled down to her ankles. So right away, it was apparent, just looking at the state of things, that it was likely that she had been sexually assaulted, and then further investigation proved that that was the case. So initially, some speculated that maybe Rachel's boyfriend, Richard, had something to do with her murder. So on the Sunday night that her body was found, he took to Facebook and he wrote, "I love Rachel. I would never do anything to her. Let the family and I grieve. Yes, I have a past, but I also have 15 months clean and I have changed as a person. Please." So according to court records, Richard has 2 arrests for second-degree assault and separate arrests for violating restraining orders, malicious destruction of property, and drug possession.
Wow, you can't really, judge these people for jumping on him with that.
Right, but people can change their ways. So this dated back to 2014, which was about 9 years before this happened, as well as charges of being a fugitive of justice, resisting arrest, and disorderly intoxication. So the Ma and Pa Trail, it runs through about a 7-mile section of Harford County, and the location where Rachel's body was found was well graded. It was very open, but there were these 2 large drain culverts that ran under the local highway.
What's a drain culvert?
It's probably something like almost like a tunnel that you could walk into.
Got it.
So during the summer months when the trees and the foliage was in full bloom and growth, you honestly, you couldn't even see these culverts because they were concealed by all the shrubbery. In the winter, it would be a different story. So investigators immediately believed that Rachel had been attacked on the trail as she came up to a bend, and she was then pulled through a wooded area because, like I said, that's what that volunteer who was searching for her noticed, that the leaves and things appeared to be disturbed and more flattened. So they believe she was pulled through a wooded area and into the drain culvert where she ultimately lost her life, as this is the place where her body had been found. So since the culverts were so concealed, many people who routinely utilize this trail, and it was a very well-populated trail that many residents of the town did utilize, many of the people who were out there during the summer months, they didn't even know that these drain culverts even existed because, like I said, they were concealed by the shrubbery. So her killer would have been able to commit the murder without being seen. So according to investigators, at the time of day that Rachel was out, the trail is usually very well populated. It was a Saturday. It was probably a beautiful day. So a lot of people were out and about getting exercise and fresh air. So residents were horrified when word was released that Rachel's death was being investigated as a homicide, as many, many people utilized the trail system and had really, truly felt safe going out there.
Yeah, all of a sudden, this is like if it was a random attack, like it could have been anybody.
Terrifying.
So was it random? Was it somebody that knew her? They got to look into that.
Right. So police released a statement for those utilizing the trail to be very vigilant and aware of their surroundings.
And that basically means don't go on the trail. There's a murderer out there.
Right. So they recommended avoiding earbuds, going out alone, and they suggested bringing a whistle or some sort of alerting device and letting your family and friends know where you were going before you set out.
Would you take any chance of going on that trail?
Not at all.
Like, granted, the murderer is probably not coming back anytime soon, but I mean, a crazy person like that, like maybe they're waiting for another victim.
You don't know the capability of this lunatic.
Right. I'm not taking that chance.
Not at all. So in the meantime, authorities were also increasing their patrols along the trail. So within the first week of the murder investigation, authorities received hundreds of tips. There had been, like I said, it was a very well-populated time. So there had been witnesses out there who had seen Rachel on the trail. Like I said, she was very routine. She was huge into exercise and fitness. So when the weather was nice, she was going to be out there. She's a flippin' mother of 5 who is owning a business. She's working her tail off. So she's probably heading out to the trail around the same time most days when she could squeeze her exercise in. So she's routinely doing her runs or walks at this location at the same time. So it was clear that her killer was familiar with this location because, like I said, people who lived in Bel Air and utilized this trail, they didn't even know that these culverts were there. So this person had done some investigating. They knew this. So, at the point in the trail where she was attacked, for likely only a moment of time, she would have been out of the sightline of others who were out that day. So, it probably happened in a flash. And you might feel like this is a sense of comfort. You're out on the trail, there's people most times of the trail, you're within sight of people for just that brief moment. When she was out of someone's sightline, this is when it happened. So that's just terrifying.
Yeah.
So seasoned investigators fully believe that Rachel had been targeted that day, and her attack had not been random, although there was still a possibility that this had just been a crime of opportunity. It wasn't out of the question that that was the case.
Yeah, they're playing the odds. And like for such a busy trail, it seems targeted.
Right. However, there was no doubt that the man chose the concealed culvert. So he went out there, he did some investigating, found this location, and waited for a victim. Was it specifically Rachel that he waited for?
Yeah.
We don't know.
And could have been like a park district person, a person that like randomly maintains that area and knows about those things.
The possibilities were open. So Kyle Stacy was a witness who was believed to be one of the very last people to have seen Rachel alive. He later testified that he was walking on the Ma and Pa Trail with his dog as well as his girlfriend when he heard a branch snap in the woods off the trail. This was about a half mile from the trailhead. So he turned toward the sound and he locked eyes with a man. He had broad shoulders and he was holding a black stick and he was wearing an orange cap. The man wore sunglasses, and despite the August heat, he was wearing a hooded sweatshirt. So the man seemed to be, in Kyle's opinion, to be acting sneaky. So he said it looked like he was almost caught in the act of doing something he shouldn't be doing. You know how that is if you look at someone, you're like, something's not right here. He's doing something he shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what we see when that happens,
No.
but there's something we see and identify.
Right. So obviously looking back, he wishes he would have said something to this guy, but the moment passed and he continued on. He acknowledged that he had been to the trail dozens of times before and noted that it was highly unusual to see someone hanging out in the wooded area off the main trail. And we were born and raised in Illinois. We have a ton of forested trail systems. And you and I have gone to so many of them when we were dating as teenagers. And
every time we go back, we still go.
We do. And you never see people off the trail.
No.
That's strange.
Yeah. Especially with an orange cap. That's kind of weird if you're going to like murder somebody to wear an orange cap.
It's kind of standoutish,
Yeah.
right? So Kyle felt uncomfortable about the encounter, which put him on high alert as he headed back towards the trailhead. And that's when he saw Rachel, and she was wearing headphones. I believe she was wearing Apple AirPods. And she was adjusting her Apple Watch at the moment that he saw her. And it wasn't until a coworker later told him that a murder occurred on the Ma and Pa Trail that Kyle went to his computer, he looked up an article, saw a picture of Rachel, and says, "Oh my gosh, this is the woman I saw adjusting her watch." So with this, he contacted law enforcement to report the suspicious man that he saw off the trail. Did this guy have something to do with what happened to Rachel? Odds are probably yes. So it later emerged that the stick that Kyle described seeing the suspect holding was likely a shovel, and it had a distinctive orange tip, and it was found in the woods a couple of days later. However, there was not enough DNA found on the shovel to determine who it belonged to. And that's another question. They talked about the fact that when you see something and you don't know it's significant when you're seeing it, you might remember things differently. And it might be that orange tip on the shovel it wasn't the guy wearing an orange hat. Maybe it was the tip on the shovel he saw, and he somehow in his mind put the cap on the guy's head.
Yeah, because your brain's always trying to make sense of things that it sees. So it just makes assumptions a lot of times. And that's like, it's habits that we get into. It's always used to doing that. And like myself, I've reported things to police sometimes, and they've been like, oh, what it was a trailer, like a pickup with a trailer behind it. They're like, how big was the trailer? I'm like, oh man, like I just saw this thing 5 minutes ago. I'm like, I don't like 10 feet. Like, was it black or was it gray? I'm like, I don't know. Like it didn't register,
I know. We see so many things throughout the day, and you don't know that it's going to come back to be a significant thing that you need to remember.
Yeah.
So as police continued to process the crime scene, they were able to recover genetic material from multiple areas on Rachel's body that were entered into the National CODIS database. So the database not only contains the DNA of known offenders, but also DNA samples from other unsolved cases. So with this, rather than being a match to a particular person, the DNA was a match to another unsolved case from a totally across the country in Los Angeles, California.
Weird.
DNA evidence is part of nearly every modern day investigation, and in Rachel's case, DNA evidence was collected by our Forensic Services Unit. That DNA was analyzed by the Maryland State Police, and it was ran through the National CODIS system. This DNA evidence has come back as a match, tied to a home invasion and an assault of a young girl in Los Angeles this past March. Unfortunately, that suspect has not been positively identified, but he did leave behind his DNA. Based on the DNA evidence, we consider the individual in the video we obtained from the Los Angeles Police Department and that we are about to show you on our TV screens to be the person that murdered Rachel Morin on August 5th.
So in this case, there was a home invasion on March 26, 2023. This is about 5 months before Rachel was murdered. And this is on, like I said, the opposite side of the country.
Yeah.
So California authorities allege that a man raped a woman and her 9-year-old daughter in this case.
Oh my God.
And left behind a baseball hat. So the LAPD were able to recover DNA from this hat that the assailant left behind. Thus, it was entered into the CODIS system. It was not a match to anyone in the system, but it eventually matched to the DNA collected from the scene of Rachel's murder from an unnamed person who was of Hispanic descent. So again, this was 5 months before Rachel was killed. So it was clear that this unnamed man was highly dangerous and violent.
Yeah.
And police could only wonder what other crimes could he have been responsible for in this 5-month span of time between these two violent attacks on opposite sides of the country. What happened in between? So investigators could only speculate if this man lived in California and then traveled to Maryland in August, or did he live in Maryland and travel to California in March? Or did he live in another state entirely and travel to those two locations? It was also possible that this man was not a U.S. citizen and potentially entered the country illegally. Those are basically the options.
A lot of balls up in the air.
Right. So according to Maryland investigators, the attack that occurred in California was highly violent. It resulted in multiple victims inside the home being injured, which included minor children. And this proved just how dangerous this individual was, which highly motivated the police to quickly locate this suspect for the safety of the public, as they feared that this guy, now we know he's responsible for two things, that he could become a serial killer if they don't catch him.
Yeah, at least two that they know of. And then this guy clearly has no conscience or any sort of good soul. Like, this guy needs to be put away
quickly
and hopefully killed.
Right. So during the home invasion that occurred in LA, a man could be seen on the Ring doorbell video from the home he entered that depicted this guy, this assailant, leaving the home. He was shirtless and he was holding a piece of clothing after he attacked this mother and her 9-year-old daughter. Had the attack not been stopped by a family member that was also in the house, it would have likely also resulted in murder. So the person who stopped the attack was described as a younger person who ultimately woke additional members of the family, and thus the attack was stopped. So with this, and I watched this Ring doorbell footage, it is just so chilling because he calmly walks out of this house.
Like nothing ever happened.
Right.
And then knowing that 4 months later, he'll go do something horrendous across this country.
And he's not running. He's calmly walking out of this home. So with this, the man fled through the front door of the home and the family went on to contact the police. So the man was only seen exiting the home since he came through another entrance that was not video monitored. He entered the home sometime in the middle of the night. So because of his positioning in the footage, the suspect's face was not visualized. Rather, it was only his profile. But it was estimated that he stood at about 5'9", he weighed 160 pounds, and he was somewhere between 20 and 30 years old. So images of the suspect were shown to the public in hopes that somebody might see him and say, hey, I know this guy. However, 6 months after Rachel's murder, investigators still had no identification for who this man was. So they had received well over 1,000 tips, each of which were followed up by authorities from across the country. So investigators relied on both witness accounts from the home invasion that happened in LA, as well as witnesses who were out in Maryland on the Ma and Pa Trail. They also utilized the Ring doorbell footage in order to create a sketch, which was then released to the public. This happened 6 months after Rachel's murder. They really, really wanted to get the sketch right so that somebody could look at it and say, hey, I know this guy. So 2 sketches were created, one with the suspect wearing the red hat that he had left behind at the home in LA, and another where he was not wearing a hat at all. So sadly, there were no security cameras along the Ma and Pa Trail, so Harford County deputies asked the public to send photos or videos that were taken on or near the trail. Maybe somebody caught an image of this guy in the back. Who knows? So there was video footage of Rachel shopping at Target before she headed to then Wawa, and then she eventually went to the trail. So they utilized all these things to help put together a timeline of events that led to her attack and murder, so they could narrow it down to exactly when this happened. So according to the Harford County Sheriff's Office, Rachel arrived at the trail at about 6:58 p.m., and based on health data from her cell phone and Apple Watch, she sent her final text message to her daughter at 7:04 p.m. And only minutes later, she was pulled about 150 feet from the main trail into the woods where she was beaten, raped, and murdered. So there was a spike in Rachel's heart rate that happened at 7:07 p.m. So this would have been only 3 minutes after she sent that text to her daughter. And something about that just punches me in the gut that this mother was out there trying to get some exercise, just innocently walking, doing something we all do every day. Send our kids or whoever a message, hit send, and 3 minutes later, some lunatic is attacking her and dragging her off the trail and into the forest.
Yeah, she's like doing everything right. She's got her like life full of responsibilities between 5 kids and a business ownership and like taking care of her body and going out jogging. And oh man, so sad. So
at 7:07 p.m., her heart rate suddenly spiked to 115 beats per minute. And then 2 minutes later at 7:09 p.m., her heart rate suddenly dropped to 69 beats per minute, then down to 62 beats per minute just 26 seconds later, which is the time that investigators believe she died, right around 7:10 p.m. So there's a 6-minute span of time that she innocently sent this text, and minutes later, she's gone from this earth, from this world.
You and I both work out quite a bit, right? So we know our heart rates.
Right.
So did you think about the heart rate? Like if she jogs all the time, obviously she has a very low resting heart rate. So 115, maybe she was like jogging at that time?
No, I don't even think she went out for a jog that day. I think she went out for a walk that day.
Oh, a walk. Okay. Because just for people, that aren't familiar, our heart rates will get up above 150 beats per minute when we're like hard working out.
Mine goes to about 165 during my big intense cardio workouts or my leg days.
Yeah. So like 115, she definitely something spiked up.
It's not that it was 115, it's that it went from her probably 70-ish resting heart rate and then it just jumped.
Yeah, so I can clearly see it. That's what's so good about these devices.
Right. And she was very much into fitness. She had actually gone to the gym earlier that day. So she was just going out for a walk from my understanding that day. So it's just so sad to think, like I said, in a span of 6 minutes, it went from an ordinary day to she was no longer with us in this world. And that truly, truly breaks my heart. So it's just always sad when you get this electronic data that shows exactly how things happened.
Yeah, it's so sad, but it's so fantastic because you can have that. And like you mentioned the lack of cameras earlier. It's like, it's great that we live in this time where we have all this technology, but sometimes it's like not enough.
So her earbuds were located as well as her shattered phone. Her phone was discovered in a shallow little piece of water in the same tunnel, right around 200 feet from her body. Her watch was located on the opposite side of the trail from the tunnels, right around 25 feet into the woods. So in response to Rachel's murder in late November of 2023, this is nearly 4 months after her murder, Harford County began working with experts who have installed cameras at various park facilities across Maryland in order to install security cameras along the popular Ma and Pa Trail. So with this, more than 100 cameras were installed on 26 poles along the trail, which cover nearly every angle of 2 miles of the trail and utilize AI to detect potential suspicious activity or incidents along the trail. So if someone is having a medical emergency or being attacked, an alert is sent out. And since Harford County had such a low crime rate, residents frequently utilize a trail without ever giving it a second thought about their safety until Rachel was murdered. So we are instead of being proactive in this case, we're being reactive. But from what I read, there was things that it could pick up on, like say a person was holding a weapon, like a knife or a gun. It would also send out an alert in this case, which obviously technology is such a beautiful thing in this regard. And that's actually what Mike does for a living. He sells these security cameras.
I do. I'm actively looking to see if those are our cameras. But yeah, it's pretty cool. A lot of the things. It's really cool to be able to provide something that is so helpful to the general public. Like we sell a lot to hospitals and federal agencies and schools, especially. That's a really important thing for me. But yeah, we can detect if there's somebody's holding a handgun, and you know, even if it's if something, you know, somebody yells or says something and it's like out of normal, and like it'll detect it right away, so you can be proactive.
And obviously it's very sad that this wasn't already in place in Rachel's case, that this guy could have gotten caught much sooner. Mike, do you sell to a lot of park districts for trail systems and things like that? Because I never hear you talking about that.
Unfortunately, no. So the only reason they spent money on this is because of what happened to Rachel, unfortunately. In this business, the only time people spend money is after something happens.
Which is sad.
Yeah, but eventually, you know, it will hopefully prevent future things from happening.
Right. So a number of witnesses within Harford County had seen men of similar build and description from the Ring doorbell footage, as well as comparison to the sketch that was released to the public. And they had seen this man in the last 2 weeks of July leading into August in and around the area. So the Morin family worked with criminal profiler Pat Brown to determine suspect traits that include that the man was a manipulative person who lacked empathy, as well as being a pathological liar. So these potential traits were listed on the flyers in both English and Spanish, and they were posted and handed out by volunteers near the Monpa Trail. There was also a $35,000 reward for any information that would potentially lead to an arrest. So a little over 10 months after Rachel's murder, this is when it all comes down.
Good.
They arrest someone.
Hell
and this is 23-year-old Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez. And he was arrested on June 14th, 2024 at a bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This guy's been all over the freaking country.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to get him.
So he was found due to a lead involving genetic genealogy.
Yes.
So when he was approached at the bar, well, we know he's a pathological liar based on that profile. Well, he lied to officers about who he was, as well as his alleged crimes. But investigators discovered that he was wanted actually in his native country of El Salvador for the murder of a woman in December of 2022. He was arrested right there, then and there, and he was charged with Rachel's first-degree murder and first-degree rape and held without bail, obviously. Yeah. He's highly dangerous. Yep. So 4 days later, he was extradited to Maryland on June 18th, and he was taken to Harford County Detention Center, where he pleaded not guilty. So at the time of his arrest, Martinez Hernandez was renting a small brick home along the 8100 block of East 15th Street in Tulsa, in a very populated area that was a short drive to multiple schools, churches, as well as an airport. So when his home was searched, you know, investigators were wondering, like, what the hell are we going to find in this guy's place? Rather than finding deadly weapons, investigators found a laptop, a sketchbook, a driver's registration from El Salvador. They also located bus tickets and a Metro card, which is how he was likely traveling from coast to coast. So it turned out that Martinez Hernandez unlawfully crossed the border from El Salvador into the United States on February 13th, 2023, near El Paso, Texas, without being inspected, admitted, or paroled by a U.S. immigration officer. So this came after an arrest warrant was issued for a young woman's murder in El Salvador in January of 2023. He is said to have connections in Washington, D.C. area and has ties to gangs. He unsuccessfully tried to enter the United States 3 times before he was successful on his 4th attempt on February 13th, 2023. So Martinez Hernandez was apprehended by the Border Patrol for unlawfully entering the U.S. on January 19th, 2023. This happened near Santa Teresa, New Mexico, on January 31st, 2023 in El Paso, and then on February 6th, 2023 in Santa Teresa, again, New Mexico. So a little over a month after he successfully entered the country, he went on to assault this 9-year-old girl and her mother. And once again, I will tell you, it likely would have resulted in murder had he not been stopped mid-attack. So then likely emboldened by the fact that he's in a country that he's like a ghost.
Yeah. He doesn't exist.
He doesn't exist. So 6 months after he entered the country, now he goes to Maryland and murders Rachel. So during the national manhunt for Martinez Hernandez after Rachel's murder, authorities learned that he was staying with family in Maryland from December of 2023 to May of 2024. So when he left in early May of 2024, he just so happened to thankfully leave behind 2 bags of clothing as well as a pair of shoes. So with this, investigators were able to recover DNA from these items to prove that he was a match for the DNA that was within the database that was recovered from both crime scenes in LA and Maryland. So because Martinez Hernandez wreaked havoc from coast to coast during the 6-month span of time that he was in the United States, I mean, he was a busy murdering lunatic.
Yeah, on a rampage.
Right.
Guy's a psycho.
So, paired with the violent nature of these alleged crimes, as well as the 10 months it took to track him down finally in Tulsa, investigators can only wonder, is he going to match for other cases that have been unsolved to this point? We'll see.
Right.
So when Rachel's family received word that an arrest was made in her case, her mother, Patty, spoke out and voiced that while they will work towards a resolution within their grief, it would obviously not change the outcome. Sadly, Rachel will never come home alive. She wanted the world to know that her daughter lived her life fearlessly, and she was always so loving and compassionate. Patty spoke of Rachel's 5 children losing their mother, as well as the fact that she wasn't alive to learn the fact that she was going to be a grandmother for the first time. And that truly, really breaks my heart. So during a meeting with lawmakers about closing the border, Patty Morin spoke out about the fact that she herself had been a victim after she was abducted and assaulted as a teenager during the 1970s.
Are you kidding? That's
no.
nuts. Jeez.
So at age 14, she was abducted from her home by a criminally insane man who forced her to walk 60 miles with no food or water. And during this horrific ordeal, the man raped her multiple times at night. She felt that what she suffered at that time was nothing in comparison to what her daughter likely suffered through at the time that she was murdered.
Poor lady, 14 years old, man, alive and raped multiple. Oh God, this is like what a horrible.
I know,
luck.
and then to think that her beloved daughter died of a violent crime.
Yeah.
So Patty clarified that she was not speaking out in a political stance. Rather, she wanted the focus to be on taking care of our country and the people within the United States. On July 2nd, 2024, Martinez Hernandez was indicted by a grand jury in the Hartford County Circuit Court, with the state's attorney pushing for the maximum sentence. If convicted, he would face a sentence of life in prison without parole, as Maryland does not have the death penalty. So on July 17th, 2024, Rachel's brother, Michael Morin, he spoke at the Republican National Convention where he blamed President Biden's immigration policies for his sister's murder. And he was referring to what happened to his sister as one of the most brutal and violent offenses that have ever occurred in Hartford County. So in January of 2025, defense attorneys requested a change in venue for the trial due to the extensive media attention that the case received. This was denied. Jury selection began on April 1st, 2025, and the trial began on April 4th, 2025. So this is all exceptionally recent.
Wow.
I actually had to amend my research because then the trial concluded. So Rachel's children and her boyfriend, they testified during the trial. Her 14-year-old daughter, Violet, recalled that she had last texted her mom, and the last text she received from her mom was at about 7 p.m., while Rachel's eldest daughter, Faye McMahon, also noted that her mom's lack of response was after 7 p.m. Some calls went to voicemail before her boyfriend, Richard Tobin, then began getting a beeping tone when he tried to call her phone. Richard recalled driving out to the trail and seeing Rachel's car, but being unable to find her. And he admitted during his testimony that, he was questioning what was going on. He questioned, was Rachel potentially having an affair? Did she drop her car off and get picked up by someone, and was she driven away?
Sure.
So with this, he decided to drive around town. He stopped into local bars to see if he could catch her in the act. Of course, we know that that wasn't the case. And then he went to her house. He found her daughter Violet home panicking because she was unable to reach her mom. And that's when he realized, something's going on here. So 10 days later, on Monday, April 14th, 2025, before allowing emotional closing arguments on both sides, Harford County State's Attorney Allison Healy outlined every event related to the case, beginning with the day that Rachel vanished on August 5th, 2023, until Martinez Hernandez was arrested in June of 2024. And all of her arguments were reinforced with solid evidence, photos, and videos that had been presented over the 10 days of the trial, thus reminding the jury that the man's DNA was found on each and every piece of evidence that had been presented. This was solid.
This is open and shut, yeah.
So she wanted the jury to consider first-degree premeditated murder, reinforcing the fact you don't accomplish a rape and murder in 4 to 6 minutes unless you have a plan in place.
So she's trying to get more than it's probably, I don't know if it's premeditated, but she's trying to get the maximum sentence.
Well, you could think about what that guy saw on the trail. He was standing there looking out, looking sketchy, looking like he was getting caught in the act of doing something.
Yeah, so rather than in the moment, was it planned? I'm going to kill somebody. That's the type of premeditation that they're looking for. And in that case, I would agree. Yeah, 100% premeditated.
100%.
He's out there trying to feed that demon inside of him.
He was standing out in those woods looking out over the trail for his prey.
Yeah.
So despite the solid DNA evidence that was found on Rachel's body, that was a match. No, don't worry.
Okay.
That was a match to Martinez Hernandez. He denied having any involvement in her murder. And in a video that was played to the courtroom, he even denied having ever been to Maryland.
Okay, buddy. Anyways, here's all the evidence, and let's continue with this trial.
So this is despite the fact that his aunt previously told investigators that he was living with her in Temple Hills in her home in 2023. He left her home about a month after Rachel's murder. Multiple witnesses and business records also indicated he had been living and working in Bel Air at the time of the murder. I think there was mention of a Popeye's chicken or something.
They're okay, we've got this. Say you're there, and you're saying you're not. Okay.
So the thing is, though, is that he often went by different names, which made it difficult for anyone to truly know who this guy was.
Well, he has 15 himself.
So he was described as a dirty, disheveled freeloader whose bad habits caused friction with his family until he eventually ghosted them in May of 2024. And luckily, he left a couple bags of his clothes behind that proved that he was the guy. So after Martinez Hernandez had been taken into custody in Tulsa, his phone revealed searches for the Bel Air, Maryland area and included screenshots of the press releases about Rachel's murder. So this told investigators and the public that this guy knew that things were closing in on him and that investigators were getting close.
Yeah.
So when he asked point blank, why was your DNA at the crime scene? He told investigators that he didn't know. And he elaborated by saying, today, there is so much technology, anyone could do damage to anyone.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, defense attorney Marcus Jenkins asked the jury to consider several things during their deliberations while they made, their discussions. Number one, the lack of motive and the fact that Martinez Hernandez did not know Rachel and had never previously communicated with her. What does that have to do with anything?
If I'm the jury, I'm just you're going to stop right there, buddy.
You're wasting our time.
We don't need to hear anything else.
So he also referenced Kyle Stacy's witness testimony where he recalled seeing a tall, broad-shouldered, muscular man with a blonde beard in the woods moments before seeing Rachel, which didn't match Martinez Hernandez's description. But again, it was reference to the psychology of what we remember and how we recall things. So meanwhile, defense attorney Sawyer Hicks pointed out that Rachel attracted a lot of male attention. And someone may have been jealous that she was in a relationship with Richard Tobin. And this may have upset a person to the point that they murdered her and that it may not have been Martinez Hernandez. So after 46 minutes of deliberation,
46 minutes.
Yeah, I'm shocked that it.
That is
I'm
the shortest
actually
I've ever
shocked
heard.
though that it took 46 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd go walk in, I'd be like, "You guys want a drink of
You good?
water? Okay,
I'm
we're
good.
good. We're good. You're good. You're good."
Do we get to order like a meal before we leave?
I'm
or
kind
what?
of thinking
Yeah.
fresh kitchen sounds
Yeah.
good, so we're good, right?
right.
It would have taken me 2 minutes, 2 seconds to deliberate in this case.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, what do you think the jury found?
Guilty as HE double hockey sticks.
So just a little FYI, the jury was 12 total, 10 men and 2 women, and they found Victor Martinez Hernandez guilty on charges of first-degree premeditated murder, first-degree rape, third-degree sex offense, and kidnapping. And his sentencing has not yet taken place, but speculation is that he will get life in prison.
It should be 7,000 years. Like, it sucks that he doesn't. You hear about people that don't like the death penalty. This guy is clearly shouldn't be existing on Earth. Like,
He is, because you think about he murdered someone in El Salvador,
yeah,
got into the United States, a horrific attack on a mother and her 9-year-old child, and then this horrific attack, rape, and murder against Rachel.
yeah. This is in his DNA. This is what he wants to do all the time. So he needs to be chopped up into pieces and like boiled in a soup and like poured out like and buried. Like, this guy, the worst thing should happen to him. I hope in jail. I hope to God that like after what he tried to do to a child, like this guy should be destroyed in jail. I hope his head is smashed into a brick wall many, many times, and we hear about his death very soon.
And it just gets me because I think about him in Tulsa, Oklahoma, sitting in this bar in a strip mall, having a beer or whatever, just casually sitting and living his life.
Free to live.
While the Morin family are grieving the loss of Rachel.
And several other families are grieving because of his actions.
Just disgusts me. So Rachel's case is yet another sad story that highlights the dangers that women sadly face on public trails. It is impossible to eliminate risk, but rather to focus on risk aversion by taking safety precaution, because as women, we are unfortunately vulnerable targets for predators. There is safety in numbers, so if you do want to go out and get exercise, think about putting together a group, finding a running group or something like that. But if you are going out alone, easy for me to say, it is so important to protect yourself. Consider bringing pepper spray along. Pay attention to people that you see along the trail. They always say, make eye contact, say hello to the person. It kind of establishes like, I see you, I'm strong. Avoid using earbuds and be alert. Trust your instincts. And if someone is making you feel uncomfortable, feel free to turn around and just get out of there. Avoid running at night and stick to well-populated trails, since predators will likely only attack when no one else is around. And I will reference back to Rachel's case. She was out on the Ma and Pa Trail, a place that people within Bel Air considered to be an extremely safe place. At the time of day she was out on the trail, it was a Saturday evening in summer. People were out in droves. She wasn't out on the trail alone. She was out there by herself for a moment of time. And that's just what highlights how scary this is and how it's so infuriating as a woman. I live in Florida, and it could be beautiful. It could be 65 degrees and I'm on my way home and I want to stop off at this trail, and I won't do it because I'm afraid that I'm going to get murdered and raped if I go.
Yeah,
and that's just sad.
As a man, I can't imagine that. And it's so sad. It's a horrible take on society, or just Earth in general, I guess. It's not like just our society. It's anywhere.
And I'm sorry, go ahead. Did you want to finish that thought? So, if you are going out alone, let someone know where you're going and utilize GPS tracking as well. And if you do fall victim to an attack, shout, yell, curse, momentarily startle your attacker, potentially scaring them away because they don't want someone else to hear and come and find like what's going on.
Yeah, and don't worry about sounding crazy or weird. Like, it's much better. I'd rather hear somebody yell and be like, "Oh no, never mind, I'm fine." Like, your whole family would rather that happen. Everybody would rather that happen than the worst.
And it sounds like whatever happened to Rachel happened so quickly and violently that she was incapacitated basically immediately and didn't even have that moment to scream out for help.
Right. I'm sure he came from behind her and covered her mouth and dragged her
or
away.
hit her in the back of the head with a rock. So consider taking self-defense classes to learn techniques to fight your attacker off. Avoid running the same route on a regular basis. As humans, we are creatures of habit. We have our schedules, and we oftentimes do things at regularly scheduled times, but that does put you at a target and it increases your likelihood of becoming, a victim. So while every person should be free to exercise and to enjoy the great outdoors, sadly, women are forced to take additional steps to keep safe. So Saturday, August 5th, 2023, it began as a typical weekend for Rachel Morin. She spent time with her children and her boyfriend. She worked out at a local gym. She ran errands. And then she headed out for what she assumed would be a peaceful walk along the Ma and Pa Trail. The trail had always been her peace, her safe space. And when she set out that day, sorry.
No,
I think
okay.
about these words that her mom has spoken, and her mom herself was a victim.
Well, and this is also, Mother's Day, and it's very close to home, and you're feeling the same thing as if it was your daughter.
And, her mom made the statement. She was not planning on dying that day. She was not planning on walking to her death. She was planning on stopping at a local trail in her town. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. The last thing she wanted to do was die, obviously, for her 5 children and, her business that was, successful by all means.
She was going to be a grandmother, and she didn't even know it.
Yeah, it's like so many horrible, horrible things from this case.
It's just so sad to me that as women especially, and don't get me wrong, I know that men can be attacked too, but, women especially are vulnerable. And it's just sad to me that, I talked to my coworker who just turned 25. She's almost like a daughter to me. She listens to this podcast, by the way. And she worries me because she tells me she goes out and does her runs and such outside. And I always tell her, please, because like I say, I look at her as like a daughter and I'm like, please protect yourself. Please go with your husband. If you can't go later, go after work. But, you think in your schedule, I just want to get it done before work. I get it. I totally get it. And we should be able to go out and about and not worry. But unfortunately, we do.
There's a difference between should and can. Seriously, speaking to women out there, you have no idea the strength of a man compared to you. Well,
look at you. If you're watching this on YouTube, look at the two of us sitting next to each other. Our sizes are completely different.
Yeah, it's and women that have probably felt the full strength of a man, you can probably say it more than anybody else. I'm not saying we're super powered or anything. We're made for bigger things and lifting things, and our muscles are bigger. That's just how we're made.
Yeah, and this guy was just a deranged, violent lunatic.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can do against a lunatic. Even when you say self-defense classes, that's not going to do much. I promise you that it's not going to do much.
Depending on the circumstances,
it's better than nothing.
But like I said, in Rachel's case, it sounds like she was attacked so quickly.
Right. Rachel could have been a black belt in something, and she had no chance.
But she just didn't even have a chance, which is so heartbreaking. Everything happened so quickly.
Well, you mentioned groups. One of our friends, she is a runner, and she goes in a group. And she took a selfie the other day, and there was all of them, running together, and had a picture. There was a few guys, a few girls. They all go out and hang out afterwards. That's the time to do it. That's ideal, but it's not always available. Unfortunately.
Exactly. Unfortunately. And maybe that case, unfortunately, just take to your treadmill that day if you can't get a group together. And I know that's sad, and we should be able to, but I'm just saying, please protect yourself when you're out and about. Stay safe, okay?
Yeah.
They say the question, would you rather come across a bear or a man in the woods? I'd rather come across a friggin' bear, to be perfectly honest with you.
I'd rather come across a man.
Not me.
Yeah, that's no thanks. Bears, big claws.
Men,
they're 800 pounds.
Predators scare the living crap out of me.
And you said that men might be attacked too. Men aren't worried about getting attacked ever, anywhere. I can tell you as a man, we're walking around scot free all the time. I could be walking in I've walked in freaking New York City and Memphis, Tennessee. I just learned Memphis, Tennessee is the most dangerous city in America with more murders than anywhere, per capita. Everybody's Chicago. It's no, it's Memphis, Tennessee. That's the pit of America, basically, as far as murders.
I'm sorry if you live in Memphis and Mike is dogging on your town.
As far as murder, it's the worst. That's where the most murders
per capita.
Per capita, yeah, it's a factual thing. So I'm not meaning to put it. It was awesome. I had some great food there, but I was walking around fine, and I'm wasn't even worried about it.
And you're lucky you get to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. It's definitely
and it's even just the harassment you might be facing, the catcalling. You don't have a right to yell out to a woman that you don't know. Shut the hell up. Stay in your friggin' lane.
Me?
Not you.
Okay, you looked at me. I just want to make sure.
I'm looking at you because you're sitting with me.
I was I didn't say anything, but okay. I'm trying to lighten the mood.
This is just leading you to believe just how mean I am. That Mike's me.
And what did I do wrong now?
So all I can say to the Morin family is my heart truly breaks for you. And I'm just so glad that this despicable, vile human pile of flesh is behind bars where he needs to stay for the rest of his entire life.
Absolutely. And Allison and I don't get political on this thing ever. So it's like, I think we can all agree that we wish this guy was never in the country and should have been,
Of course, he's a murderer.
Sent back and sent into the ocean. Like, I think everybody can agree on that. This was a bad thing, and we got to figure out something that this doesn't happen again.
Right, to protect our people. But yeah, anyway, so thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. Again, if you're listening on Mother's Day, if you're a caregiver or a mother of any kind, happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we mentioned earlier, we are just a little independent mom pa podcast. I'm Pa.
And I'm Ma.
Yeah. And so you'll see that there's a Believe network underneath our name, but they just find us advertisements. We own our own show. We're the only people in here. So don't worry about that. We're not going mainstream. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you want to listen to some extra episodes, we've got over 100 bonus episodes. So we have a new bonus episode every Wednesday. So you can become an Apple subscriber right now. Go ahead and get a free trial, or go ahead on Patreon and all the same episodes there. Different options on Patreon. So as little as $5 or $3 if you want to go ad free. So check that out. There's free options everywhere. Go start a free trial. You deserve it. Listening right now, this is your sign to go give it a shot.
I agree. So anyway, thank you guys again. And until next time.